Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. This event is part of the Remake Learning Days across the America, and this is a celebration of innovative experiences and opportunities for youth to develop their sense of creativity, perseverance, and curiosity. Remake Learning Days is a festival of events hosted by a variety of organizations such as schools, museums, libraries, after-school programs, and universities. So especially this event is part of the, as you can see, it's part of the whole celebration that is going on across the county and nationally too. So again, you can download the slides and we'll provide, Haley, if you can help me repost the information, the links and the information there, but you can download the slides. And if you want to access that database of events that are happening not only in San Diego, but regionally, feel free to take a look and use the link to access that information. And of course, today we're going over the ImPactful Sandbox pilot project to share with you our learnings, our takeaways from this experiences and our mistakes also. And we want to take our partners, both national and at a regional level, who are helping us make this event possible. And you can take a look at this through the slides. And we also want to invite you to be part of this conversation. That the goal of this webinar is to create a space for you to ask questions, to share with us your insight of what has been your experience implementing similar programs. So feel free to ask questions. Haley from our team, we're going to introduce ourselves in a moment, but she's going to help us track your comments and questions. So feel free to add those as they arise and add them to the chat box, and we'll take those questions through the webinar. You can also unmute yourself to ask those questions, and we will also have time at the end to provide space for that. So again, the hope is to create a conversation today around the topics that we care about. So here's an introduction to our team at the Jacobs Institute. Are some of the team members who made the ImPactful Sandbox possible. And my name is Bianca, so I'm the Educational Program Specialist at the Jacobs Institute. And we also have with us today Charles, our collaborator, who helped us make this program a reality. So Charles, do you want to take a moment and introduce yourself? I think I saw that you were here. If you want to come on camera, if you're available, Charles. If not, we'll come back to you. We also have here with us Haley. She's joining us. She's part of our team. Haley, do you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone. I'm the admin coordinator here at the Jacobs Institute.
Thank you. And Haley's going to help us monitor your questions, any questions that you have. We're going to take a look at those as they're coming through the chat. So I saw some of you are from Atlanta, Georgia, seeing the work that you do. It's nice. So yeah, thank you for doing that, introducing yourself too in the chat. So let's go ahead and here you see some other team members that help us make the ImPactful Sandbox possible this spring break. So I know we have a mix of audience today. Some of you are familiar with the Jacobs Institute and the work that we do here, and some of you are brand new to this work. So I'm just going to do a brief overview of the work that we do, and just be patient if you're already familiar with this information. So the Jacobs Institute for Innovation in Education is a nonprofit R&D institute powering inclusive innovation and leadership in education. We are affiliated with the School of Leadership and Education Sciences at the University of San Diego. Our mission is to foster inclusion, diversity, and social justice in education. Our team includes researchers, designers, technologists, and faculty. And we're gonna go through the sandbox, so you can take a look at what the program that we prepare for you today here. But I see that Charles is also online. Charles, do you want to take a moment and introduce yourself to the audience here?
Yes, I moved to a different spot. I apologize. I was getting a bad connection. Can everyone hear me okay? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear you now. Mhm.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah,
Charles, I think you're still disconnecting. You're still
it's
having
kind of
connection.
collaborate and execute. Okay, let me try to work on my connection and I'll try to reconnect. I'll try to get back.
No worries. No
Thank you.
worries. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So Charles helped us made this camp possible, and he was in charge of the podcasting piece. So yeah, he'll connect with us in a moment. So the sandbox was, and I'll tell you a brief intro of the sandbox because we have a nice video that was put out by KPBS about our 1 week program. But the main focus of this program was to combine design thinking, the global goals, and podcasting to help teens create a local solution um, and create a social project to impact their local community. So let's take a look at this video that really does a nice job kind of showcasing the students' work.
They kind of are behind me.
This classroom is filled with innovators, students who are here to collaborate on solutions to problems, like San Diego's traffic.
We decided to create awareness and educate people on public transportation that we already have in San Diego, like the trolley system.
All this week, these teenagers from schools in the Linda Vista area have worked in teams to identify a local problem, interview expert civic leaders, and then prototype and pitch their solution to the community.
Part of that is the communication piece. How do you ultimately create a new project and create something and then pitch it and get other people's buy-in?
Monty Kalish is part of the team from the University of San Diego Jacobs Institute teaching students. This pilot program is a partnership with the San Diego County Office of Education and Cloudcast Media. The final product is a podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the ImPactful Sandbox podcast.
Each team addressed a different problem and then used a microphone and their newfound interview skills to communicate their plans.
So you're building a website as part of the prototype, is that what you're saying?
Camila, JJ, and Ryan tackled the issue of how to find a high-paying job in the aftermath of the COVID devastation.
My dad lost his job and he had to he had to work a lot to find another job. It was really hard for us.
Many families suffered the same problem. Now for a solution.
We made a website to help people that weren't qualified for a job to get the job or get the requirements for the job.
The young podcasters ended up helping themselves and having some fun this spring break too.
It helped me a lot with improvising and just talking more clearly.
I like talking a lot. I like talking very loudly sometimes. I like talking to other people because I like seeing their thoughts and views on things.
The pilot podcast program this week was a success, and there are plans to expand it across the county this summer. So stay tuned for many more students who want to have their voices heard. MG Perez, KPBS News.
So I hope that the video kind of like showcases the students' work and their inspiration. They were super inspired to work on their local solutions, as you can see. And the previous slide, if you want to access this video, you can use that on the previous slide. You can access the link. Again, we are providing the links to the slides in the chat, so feel free to reference back to that link in the chat to access the slides. And we also provided the link to the published podcasting piece from Spotify, so you can access that, and it's also available in our other media. So feel free to just look up the ImPactful Sandbox, and you can find the published podcasting piece of the students. And they also had a social solution as part of this 1 week camp, and we'll talk about that more in depth. And also the final pitches are available in that link. So just reference back to that link, the previous slide, to access all of that.
They kind of are.
So as part of this experience, the main curriculum that we were using to implement this 1 week camp was that Pactful curriculum. And again, we have actually some teachers are implementing this curriculum currently and are getting ready to submit the students' pitches. But if you're not familiar with Pactful is an open source platform that we have available. So if you're interested in learning more about this resource, feel free to connect with me. Feel free to reach out to us. But it's really a source for students and teachers to design social innovative solutions. And it provides the teachers we call them educators, because it can be anyone really who wants to assist students. So you don't necessarily have to be a teacher and educator. You can define that as your own terms. We have some educators who are implementing this with a group of students that they work with within their organization or within different settings. So church group, you can, as long as if there's a group of students that you want to support and coach, you're welcome to be part of the Pactful Challenge. And we implement the Pactful Challenge every year. So again, we have those links provided for you so you can learn more. But let me play a video so you can kind of summarize what Pactful is.
Anyone in your city. To make the world a better place, it takes people like you working in teams. Using the design thinking process, you'll identify issues, brainstorm ideas, and prototype incredible new solutions to problems that affect us. Your team will work through 3 phases of design thinking: understand, ideate, and prototype to create a solution for a local or global issue. When complete, you'll also develop a pitch to share your work with a larger audience. Have you ever realized that everything in the world is designed, but not all designs are good? With an innovator's mindset and design thinking, you will redesign the world and make it a better place. Get ready to become a bold and powerful innovator.
As you can see, this curriculum is part of the design thinking, and we use the different phases to walk students and educators through the process in order for them to create an innovative solution. And usually this process takes months. It takes a long time for students and teachers to work together and design that innovative solution as they access the different curriculum components that we have available for them online for free, and the different activities and resources. But we wanted to do this 1-week camp. So our goal was to figure out a way to bring all the different curriculum components, tools, resources for teens to experience. So that's what we're going to be talking to you about today.
Anyone in your city. To make the world
Okay, so you can see here an agenda, kind of the schedule for the week. This was our idea for the whole week. We had, of course, as you know, nothing goes as planned, and I'll tell you more about it later on. But we had we had a whole week planned full of activities, and the way that we kind of sorted things out is that we kind of categorized the different activities that we wanted for students to complete during this 1-week camp. So you can see that we kind of try to put those in as best as we could, especially because students were going to be rotating through different activities. You also see here a photo of our weekly team staff of different people that were part of this. Again, this was a collaboration with different organizations and local organizations and different resources to make this possible. So one person that you see here is Shannon, and she's the principal of Kearney High School, who help us connect with students, especially connecting with students in different programs that needed this resource, because we know that those are the hardest students sometimes to connect with resources. So different staff at the school help us with the processing of onboarding students and checking on students to get them fully enrolled. So I'm gonna go through each day so you can see an overview of what we did for the camp, what the things that we had planned, the things that worked, the things that didn't work. Again, feel free to share your feedback as we're going through the slides, as I walk day by day of the whole camp experience. And we'll have hopefully Charles is able to connect also and tell you more about the podcasting piece of the technical side of podcasting piece. So you can integrate that also. But feel free to, again, add questions in the chat box. Unmute yourselves once I go through each slide. So we hope to gather your input as we go through this information. So I'll go through the first day. And I have to say that the first day didn't start on the actual, like the first day on that Monday. It started like way before we brought the students to the camp. So through our collaboration process and insight that came was to have students connect with the resources that were going to be presented to them before we even brought them to the camp. So we started communicating with students online through email and always CCing the parents to make sure that they were also informed of any information that was sent out to students. But our communication and connection started with them before the start of the camp. And I think that's one of the things that made a huge difference for students. So we gathered their input of the different global goals that they were interested about, so that it could help us connect with those local leaders, government officials that they wanted to interview for their podcasting piece. And this podcasting piece was also going to connect to their main project outcome, which was not only podcasting, but also creating their social project. So they were gonna also gather input from those civic leaders in order to gather feedback or just insight about working with different social impact issues. And again, one way we did that was taking the input from students, seeing what topics attracted them most or were more interesting to them. And then after we knew that information, then we seek out these different leaders that through different collaborations, we were able to connect with them, and they were open to connecting also and helping with the camp. But I think that was one of the main insights that I can share with you, reaching out to civic leaders and seeing how open they were to come and spend an hour or 30 minutes with students to help them create their podcasting piece. So an example that you see here is Colin Perrin. He's the executive director at Secret Lake San Diego, and he works with creating sustainable cities, pathways, bike paths. And you can see that sustainable cities was one of the top categories for students to select. So when we had them come to the first day, they already had formed their ideas behind their the topics that they wanted to select. We also said that there has to be a balance between the information that we're providing and how much information we are providing, because it can be overwhelming for students to have too many activities to do before a camp or an experience, because of course they have their extracurricular activities, their own homework that is going on. So learning to do a balance of that, but seeking students' input to help you design that experience is crucial. And this is something that we learned through this experience. And in the first day, we had them do a activity to select their civic leader and SDG goal. So the way that we do that is in a room, you can kind of see here posters around the room. We've put up the biographies of all the civic leaders, as well as the global goal that they were addressing in their work. So we had an activity where students were rotating and going around and talking to other students about the civic leader, and then they switched to another leader. And in the third round, they had to select someone. So they had to select a civic leader, and also that civic leader had different global goals that they were currently working on, and that was going to help kind of start forming the path for them to start working on their social project. So going back to that design thinking process, the one that we implement in Pactful, one first thing that we the first phase of design thinking is the understand phase. The understand phase of students understanding the problem, creating empathy for the audience who are being impacted by this challenge, seeking out, interviewing those that are being affected by this challenge. So there's different activities and different tools that we have available for students. And again, I invite you to go to our website, pactful.org, and you're able to get insight in that curriculum too. But something, because I think one of those things that we learned from this process also was to spend more time on this understand phase of help, giving enough time for students to understand phase, especially because that's going to shape the whole outcome of the students' projects and activities. So from our own learning, this is something that we took into insight, because there's some research that needs to happen as well as part of this phase. So yeah, I think that was one of the insights that we understood right away, that we need to spend more time with students next time we roll this out, helping them understand phase, especially because in the beginning of the stages, they're trying to frame different concepts. So they usually need a lot of help from other adult professionals that are in well, this was a 1 week experience to help them kind of shape that. And I'll tell you how we did that. And this day we also had them select the different components for podcasting. So Charles, are you able to connect maybe through audio even?
Yeah, can everyone hear me now?
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I've been
Thank
able, I once I switched devices and locations, it improved, so I apologize.
No worries, Charles.
But I'd be happy to, if you give me a couple of seconds, I'd maybe make a couple of macro level comments, and then I'll let you get back on track. So what I would like to share with the group is that this group of students walked in on a Monday knowing absolutely nothing about design thinking. And they also knew nothing about recording a podcast, interviewing people, researching a guest. But by Wednesday, they were actually on air interviewing city leaders and did a phenomenal job. And on Friday, they left having prepared a pitch for their prototype and hit publish on their podcast. And that all happened inside of a week, with kind of the resort course, express course for getting them there. But I want to share with everyone on here that, to me, one of the most impactful thing, no pun intended, was every student at the end talked about how design thinking could be used to design their own lives. When they come across challenges in their life, when they come across a hurdle, an obstacle, a goal they're shooting for, how to apply this very same design thinking process that was taught by the team at USD, how to apply it to their own lives. So to me, that was every bit, and maybe even more meaningful than the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, as outlined by the United Nations, that they were tackling. Those were important, but for them to leave, and when they were chatting with Bianca at the end and say, we think we can use this process on our own lives, that was the golden moment in many respects. And so I just want to share with everyone that, while we're talking about cool things like podcasting, which this young generation loves, and design thinking, a powerful concept, it was an amazing week. And I would encourage everyone, at the end of this session to follow up with us, and let's see if there's a way we can, deliver this to some of your students, because it was a pretty amazing process to see what happened inside of a week. So Bianca, that's what I was going to say at the beginning. I apologize for interjecting that.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Charles. Thank you for putting it in context. Yeah, definitely the students were not at all familiar with the different concepts that they were going to be working around, and at the end they deliver. And Charles was a great partner in helping us do that, and helping and coaching students. But it's also important, as Charles has mentioned, is as part of Pactful, our goal is to create innovative mindsets, not teams, innovative mindsets that they can not only use to solve social issues, but also any areas where they want to implement the skills that they're learning about innovation, ideating, prototyping, because as we know, this can be implemented in a full range of areas, not all areas. So thank you for sharing that, Charles. If you want to also share, Charles, during this first day, what was this piece about when students were selecting, and why is this important?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, kind of, if any of you have ever been, away on a vacation and you go to and you have the opportunity to get diving certified, but it's the resort course, it's limited, but I wouldn't necessarily, going too deep in your ocean dive. So what we had to do here, because we only had 1 week, normally when we're working with student groups, and we have a whole high school podcasting program called Schoolcast, we're working at the Jackie Robinson Y. We're doing youth projects all over the county with the County Office of Education and USD, but normally we have more time. So we actually will normally have students perhaps create original music as the music DNA of the show, design the podcast style. They'll do it all, write intros, write outros, figure out story flow and structure. But this was the resort course. This was a 1 week course. So we essentially had to do some prefabs. So what we did is we designed 3 podcast tiles. Interesting enough, the podcast tile that the adults liked was their least favorite. No surprise. So they picked the podcast tile. The music, we picked 3 music samples as the underlying music DNA. Yet again, the students picked the musical genre and beat that was not what we had chosen as adults, but we didn't even actually get a vote in it. They voted. It was democracy in action. We had someone tallying the votes, in the classroom. So, and then we had intros and outros for the show, also written 3 different formats, and the students actually chose that element as well. So in this little resort course, we do a little front loading, so to speak, so we can actually get through this, because we told the students at the beginning of the week, and this is really important, that when they on Friday, they were going to come up and hit publish on their episode and would immediately be on all of the podcast listening apps, or as many as we possibly get when you hit publish, which was most, because it is available. I would encourage you to pull it up on your favorite podcast listening app, ImPactful Sandbox. And that's Apple, it's on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, it's all over. And you'll hear the students work, because that's, we promised them they'd hit publish and they made it happen. So, but we had to essentially pre-construct some of the components. And then our engineers would day by day be compiling things in the background. So by the way, the other thing I'll mention as well, because it's a short course, we didn't get into any engineering in this course. As we stretch it out, there's more engineering and other elements of podcasting that is very, very teachable and very much worth teaching.
Charles. Haley, do you want to share any questions that we have in the chat?
Yeah, so Anna asked, could you share an example of how students identified how they could use design thinking in their own lives?
Yeah, thank you, Anna, for that question. So when I was speaking to students, they were telling me about how they can implement this for any problems that they have. So using the design thinking process of ideating ideas to solve any problems that they're going through. And I think that was one of the key experiences for us to see of how students took ownership of their own learning. And that was a big reflection from their side of, I didn't have someone telling me exactly what I was doing, all the steps that I needed to do, but they took ownership of their own learning and they figured things out by creating their own artifacts, whether that was a podcast or the social project that they were creating. So let's jump into the next great question. Keep the questions and comments coming, and we'll jump here back and forth between the different information that we have. Let's jump into the next day. So as you can see, students started getting more and more hands-on activities, and that's the goal with Snow, is creating spaces for students to create super engaging activities. But on this second day, the whole focus of the day before even starting was to recap, and there was a lot of recap and feedback from the different staff for students. And that was another key component of the students' work, that they were not only creating, but also they were able to accumulate feedback and implement it right away without waiting much time in order to fix anything that they needed to fix or craft something differently. And I'll let you know, I'm gonna share with you a little bit of how we do that in Pactful. So first we started the day with doing this recap of on the understand phase with them, with the whole class, where they all teams share with us the social local issue that they were gonna focus on. And that took some time for them to be able to switch their, not switch, but get their general idea of the social project that they wanted to work on. For example, say like sustainability and climate change, and coming to the idea of, okay, I want to address transportation or bringing knowledge of the bus system here in San Diego. That took that took refining and support. So it was it took some process for students to be able to walk through this process. But again, that recap, helping with that recap, going through daily objectives and the deliverables that were due daily without having, say, that podcasting piece or the project due on Friday out of the nowhere. No, we had like every day we had small pieces that were due. And then at the end, they just put them all together. So that was super useful. Again, staff working with students, coaching them in framing the problem, understanding the issue that they were trying to address. And this day, because remember, we had a full pack week, we also introduced the ideate phase of having students gather ideas to solve the challenge that they were gonna focus on. And this day, they also received podcast equipment experience. So this was the first day that they actually got to play around with the equipment. And Charles will share with us a little bit more of this experience, because this was definitely when you see students smiling, enjoying, eager to get up and try and test this, you know that you're doing something right. So this was definitely a part of the camp where we were able to see that when they were able to create their pitch, when they were getting ready to put their material together. But before we jump into this podcasting piece, I want to show you a little bit of the back end for Pactful and how we have it set up. So we have 3 different sections under each phase: the explore, the do, and finally where the students turn in their work to receive feedback. So once they submit their files, we provide this feedback for them to reuse, to use and modify or use to create any part of their project that they're implementing. So Cheryl, do you want to talk a bit of here about this experience for students when they got their hands on the equipment?
Yeah. Yeah, can everyone hear me okay still?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, this was really pretty simple for the most part. And again, it comes from my perspective. Anytime we're working with students, you know, the couple things we focus on, which is it's impossible to feel any stress at all if you're laughing and having fun. It's actually biochemistry wise, you can't be laughing and having fun and feel stress at the same time. So we're always trying to make sure kids are having a good time. The other issue is food. By the way, Bianca didn't mention that, but we make sure there's tons of food. These students set a world record and ate 43 donuts in one of the days. And I just wanted to share that with you. And if we're not supposed to have served donuts, blame Bianca, not me, even though I brought them. And so food, have a good time, hands-on, LBD, learn by doing. So just a matter of, hey, getting comfortable, hearing their voice, proper mic techniques, distance. So it was really just very simple, hands-on, get a chance to record something. We obviously brought all the equipment and everything down there. And just, again, to get them excited about what's coming. And that's really all it was. It was super simple. It was just a matter of learn by doing, hands-on, have a good time, and then get used to hearing their voice on a microphone and the headsets.
Yeah, definitely. That was a huge experience for students, especially providing digital media tools. The students, like Charles mentioned, they're like excited to to work with. And again, it can be multiple of digital media tools, no, but also connecting with those students who are usually not the, I don't know, some students feel very comfortable with using their voice and not necessarily maybe on video, because they express this to us. Video, I don't know, but voice is fine. Like they were fine speaking behind a microphone. This is something also that Charles talked to students about the different roles that they could have as part of the podcasting piece. Charles, if you want to mention that, as how like not all students have to be like with public speaking skills, like the different roles that they're able to play with a podcasting production piece.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's pretty simple. I'm sure for the folks that are on this session here this morning, you work with students or you've coached teams or you have children, you know, it's about teamwork. And we let everyone know that, hey, it's a team to make this happen by Friday. And there's a variety of roles, including researching of the guests, formulating questions. Some of the students maybe have better research and writing skills, and other ones may be more natural on the microphone. That happened. We had a couple of students that were unbelievable. They could have their own podcast tomorrow full time. They were that good, that comfortable. And then others who were really good at cranking on doing research and formulating questions and some good ideas. So, you know, the concept from day one was it's teamwork. You know, Bianca and her team, you know, everyone was assembled in teams, as she mentioned. So, and everyone had to put in the work, you know, in order to arrive at that Z in terms of their pitch and their podcast.
Thank you, Charles, for sharing that. Let me go through the third day. Again, we're going to have more time for questions and comments, so feel free to add those as you can in the chat box. So the third day, we started having students start recording their podcast with their civic leader, but also start creating the prototype for their social innovation project. So again, that recap always in the morning before, when once students join the whole group, of having each student's group share their update, help other students who were struggling, hear the different ideas that the other groups had, and help them clarify their projects or refine their problem statement. All that, listening to each other and how they were figuring things out, work out fantastic. So we always suggest, like, rely on other students to set the example, as always, no, with different projects. And again, we had the first students record the sessions. One technical problem that we're running through, this is the way we solved it. And always, again, if you want to share any insights that you have, but this might be able to be used for you in any other setting. So we wanted to students, so the first team knew that they were gonna go first and that they were gonna be kind of setting the example for the rest of the teams. And we wanted the other students to be able to see this first podcasting recording piece. But we didn't want to create the kind of distraction that students can create when being all in one room, because we were implementing that, talking about the physical space and the environment. We had one main group where students were working on their projects, and we had another room where they were actually recording their podcasting. So the way that we ended up doing this is that we live streamed the podcast recording that was happening next door. So students who were in this other room had the option of either listening to the live stream that was happening next room, or they could also work on their projects. And this is something also that we got into the fourth day, day 4. We saw more students working in their small groups. So we gave them ample time to work during the evenings. They had the opportunity, if they were either recording their podcasting piece, or they were working on their social project, or they were working on their podcasting script, getting ready for their podcasting piece. And that flexibility of allowing students to work and progress with their team as they saw fit was a very magical experience to see, because it's part of the ownership, no, of allowing students to take ownership of their time, ownership of deciding how or figuring things out, was very important for this third and fourth day. So continuing with the fourth day, as always, we did a recap. Each student presented their update for their current project and their prototype, and they share if they were gonna create something. We had students, we had some students creating a website, others a social media plan outline, others were planning an assembly, like an agenda for a school assembly, and we had different groups of students working on different projects. And we also, this evening, we also introduced the pitch, the rubric of how they were gonna present their final work. So they could prep for Friday. So as you see, things went super fast. And in the afternoon, they always had this time to not only enjoy the snacks, as Charles mentioned, that they were always available for them, but they also had the opportunity to kind of guide themselves in this space. And of course, they had us in case they had questions or if they were feeling stuck in an area. But you can see here, I wanted to share before we jump that, we have the ability to work at the Linda Vista Innovation Center, and they had tables where students can write on. And this was also a nice option to have for students, of having them upload their work in different formats. So for example, when they uploaded their prototype plan, they uploaded a photo of this. So even giving the ability of students to work with different materials, right? So instead of having them like, hey, you have to transfer this to a document and submit it on Pactful, like we allowed them to take a photo of the work wherever they were writing, where that was a poster. As you can see here, like this is one of our posters, but students put up their own posters. And that also helped with the environment to create an environment that they felt that it was their space. They were creating, and the things that they were creating were put up the wall, on the table. Again, that sense of ownership and creating the space, a creative space for them to work on. And finally, the day came, no, day 5, for them to put everything together and present. So we went over their presentation skills, where we practiced in the morning, giving them some tips, all with the resources from different staff that help us coach students. Students turn in their presentation, and again, they gather feedback from Pactful. And Pactful has a space for you, the educator, to provide feedback for students. And Charles, you want to talk about how they published their work for the podcasting piece? Because that was very exciting.
Yeah, like I said, it's just a matter of loading it up into essentially a database. But again, the most important part is having each team come up and hit the publish button on their episode. And I will say, I think Bianca had the same feeling, but as soon as they hit publish, we kind of lose the students for a little bit, because they were extraordinarily excited, immediately getting on their listening apps and listening to their episode that was out there for the entire world potentially to hear. So it was pretty cool. But so from a technical standpoint, nothing exciting. Just basically, it's the physical activity of coming up with their team to the front of the room and on the big screen hitting publish on their episode, and then seeing it says published. So that was really it. It's that simple, but it was powerful. I will tell you, it was amazing to see how excited these kids were with the work they had done all week, really grinding it through. And then seeing that result, it was pretty powerful.
And Charles, someone actually has a question for you in the chat that I wanted to bring up. So it's from Brian. He's asking, do you have a list of must-haves as far as equipment to be successful, maybe in budgetary tiers?
Yeah, we do. And Brian, and by the way, I don't know if Bianca's going to do it at some point, but probably send out our contact information. So I'm pretty simple, Brian. It's Charles@cloudcast.us, because we have a whole platform for high school programs and teen programs. But generally speaking, it's a function of our standard package is essentially 4 microphones, 4 headsets, a Roadmaster Pro, possibly an iPad or a laptop, depending on how they want to record it. You can also use a card inside the Roadcaster Pro. And so the equipment is really not terribly difficult or expensive. Our program we have training, a program we have called Voice, Visualize, Operationalize, Communicate, Imagine, and Execute, with a specific part in there. There's a series of modules: ACE, attentive listening, conversation, enthusiastic, training them how to execute the components. So there's a variety of elements, but Brian, feel free to hit. It's not a terribly complex thing. As all things in life, it's about execution more than it is the ideas and the technology. But feel free to hit me up with an email. Be happy to chat with you at any time about obviously the whole program with USD, or podcasting in particular. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. So I type in the Charles' email in the chat, so feel free to use that resource. Thank you, Charles, for sharing. And yeah, I think like Charles mentioned, like the technology piece is always a part of students and a resource for students, not getting lost also on the whole mission and the whole piece of the podcasting. So it wasn't just a podcast. It was, and we can even talk more about this when it comes to the Q&A, but the script really was, the way the script was shaped was in a way that it involved students' projects. So they were integrating, getting feedback from the civic leader, and having them also understand the design thinking phase in that understanding phase, not of like asking them like, who are you serving in your community? How are you reaching out to that audience? What are some innovative tools that you use? So it's like all this, also that the process that we use for working with students. And like Charles says, like, feel free to reach out to us. We're always open to collaborating with you, to talking to you. And I know that we have different teachers that are connecting from different parts of the educators, from different sorts, all kind of sorts of social income. So at the end of the day, use any technology that is available. If you have cell phones, and students are able to record on their own phone, and that's how you get started, by just bringing the idea of podcasting, then go ahead and do that. Of course, if you want to reach out to us and to Charles and see how we can be of support, that's also an option. But don't forget of all the resources that your students might already have.
Yeah. I want to add to that, Bianca, if you don't mind, let me for 1 second, in terms about, let me build off of Brian's question and your thought, which is, here's the other thing too. And again, for anyone on here who's ever coached, whether it's personally, teams, or your own students, we adopted a coaching mindset right from day one. We told them where they were going to be on Friday if they did the work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I said, if you work with us, because we're going to be here every step of the way grinding with you, but there's expectations and work you have to put in. Hey, because getting on the microphone is fun, but we said, we're not just recording you goofing around. Here's what we're doing this week. So Brian, to your point is hey, the equipment's there, it's fun, it's a nice shiny object, but they had an understanding and an expectation of what we're going to be doing and what it is we're recording and who we're talking to. And you're going to reflect well on your high school, you're going to reflect well on your teammates and the University of San Diego by putting in the work and being professional and having questions that are relevant to the guests and the SDG that you're tackling. So the expectations were there from day one. And of course, that's the food reward as well. So I just wanted to share that, Brian. So the technology is great, and that's the big shiny object, but their expectations is what drives performance, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. And Charles did an amazing job, like coaching students, supporting students in walk and preparing them more mentally, right, for for the podcasting recording because they were nervous because it was the first time they were going to be officially recording a podcasting piece and gathering feedback. Like Charles and his team was there providing feedback on the script on a night before or the day before or the day off even, and the coaching students and preparing them. I know we have a question even related to the students' expectations and the rubric and how this help students prepare. And I will reference back to this, what we're saying, like Charles and I are trying to communicate that we set expectations from the beginning. We set expectations, but we always communicated that they had us as a resource to support them. So starting from like, these are going to be your outcomes on Friday, the podcasting piece published, and also your social local project pitch that's going to be recorded on Friday. And breaking that down into small chunks that are due daily, small objectives and deliverables that were due daily. So by the end of on Friday, they were not like, oh, these are things these 2 things are due and do them. No, they were creating things daily that help them prepare for that final pieces of publishing their work. And also on the rubric, so the rubric and the curriculum is all available in Pactful. So I would suggest, you can go into pactful.org, create an account, and dive into the curriculum, the rubrics, the different activities that we have in there to find a resource and seek any information that you're looking. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Charles or anyone in the team. So let me just finish up the 2 slides by going over the final takeaways, and we'll open it up for a Q&A. And thank you for being so engaged through this webinar. So I think I went through many of them, but let me just rephrase some of them. So key takeaways for us. So invite, be open, be open to seeking out collaborations and asking different local nonprofit or government leaders to be part of the experience that you're creating. You'll be surprised of how open they are into being part of experiences like this. Have different activities for students throughout the day so that they have a mix of different activities that they can connect to. Providing feedback and framing, helping them frame their learning was, again, essential. And the guests that you're inviting, they should have some experience of working with teams to help with the engagement piece. So that was a key component also. That students took ownership of their learning and they had the space to design and process their own projects. The downtime was very minimal because it was a full pack schedule, but we would extend the time. Again, going back to that understand phase, we wish we could have extended that a little bit more too. So for us, we're thinking next time it's going to be like a week and a half for us. They were doing from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. So that was our time for the schedule. Students did ask for a longer lunch time. Again, the food was a key component of this camp, and they always reference back to the snacks and the food. And for us on our side, just integrating one activity that allows them to understand the whole process before jumping in. And also attendance was a challenge. So next time around, we're thinking of partnering with the school and implementing this at a local school so it can help with that. But other than that, I think that's all. We'll open it up for a Q&A, and let me stop the recording. But thank you so much for joining the webinar. Thank you, Charles, for sharing your insight. And again, feel free to reach back if you have any questions. But let me go ahead and stop the recording.